investigated a lot of complaints and worked to resolve differences without litigation. So I'm used to dealing with problems. Thank you.
Chuck is next. Goes to Chuck. The other Chuck.
Thank you. This question for me was one of the hardest ones because when I think of vision, I think it's something that needs to be developed and shared by the board, by the community itself. But I think it's fair to say that what I'd like to see is a community that people are proud to live in and want to be here. And also a community that gets open, honest communication from the board on issues that are of interest to the homeowners. And for those homeowners that aren't really all that interested in hearing what's going on, they should feel comfortable that their board is protecting their interests as well as the interests of all the homeowners. So that's what I see ultimately as my vision for SCCL. And if I'm elected, I'm going to work hard to make sure that there's open, honest communication with homeowners and also to protect the interests of all homeowners, not just those that are represented by, that are on the board. Thank you.
Jim is next.
In 5 years, I see Sun City, Carolina Lakes continuing to be a viable, friendly, attractive place for retirees to live and for our families to visit. I see continued maintenance of our amenity centers and property values. I see Sun City, Carolina Lakes as an appreciated and accepted member of the larger Lancaster County population. My role as a board member will be to work to ensure that we have a competent, capable management firm in place with experienced and valued employees to enforce CCRs. I will work with local elected officials concerning potential impacts on Sun City, Carolina Lakes, including development along 521, and the discussion that I've heard of possible incorporation, for which I've not heard a compelling reason for incorporating Indian land. Please note that Sun City alone will be a larger city, all but about 70 incorporated areas within South Carolina. Thank you.
My vision of Sun City in 5 years is to have it be a desirable place to live and continue to be that. I'd also like to improve the desirability while keeping your monthly HOA dues as reasonable as possible. Desirability means many things. That a board member would have to deal with appearance of the community, well-maintained facilities and amenities, and my role to some extent would probably be to keep the financial house in order so that we know how the money's coming in and where it's going to. My role, create the foundation needed to manage and operate the people, systems, and everything else here. Essentially create a well-oiled machine, I think was as Chuck said previously, so that owners that will be able to rely on their board to do the right thing. I'll try to analyze and prioritize issues and work with the other board members to get things done. And the other thing to consider is that things may change in the future. We may have to change the way we think about our facilities as our population changes. Thank you.
All the way back down the road to Rick now.
Uh, 5 years from now, I see Sun City much the same as it is today, but a lot better. Still the same beautiful, vibrant place that it is today, still offering the same amenities and the lifestyle we all came here for, but with all the problems bubbling beneath the surface here, roads, lakes, buildings, the way the finances have been handled, all that stuff resolved. I see us with not one, but 2 functioning amenity centers. Maybe even with enough parking, not sure about that one. But this place, this is a great place to live. There's no reason, we want to improve it. We want to preserve it, we want to protect it. There's no reason to dramatically change it. My role in doing that, I didn't mention in my opening, I spent 30 years as a corporate lawyer. I want to be your advocate on the board. I think that's what's been missing for us. We have had no voice. We've had no one to advocate for our interests and represent our interests on the board. And I think that's something that I can do very effectively, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you, Rick. Next question is, what do you feel is a single major issue facing SCCL's transition from builder to resident control? And if elected to the board, how would you mitigate this issue? And we start with Paul.
I think the single major issue we need to deal with here as a board member is nothing will happen unless Pulte agrees. Even after the election of 3 owners, we're still going to have 4 Pulte employed board members, so they'll still have the majority. It goes without saying what's best for Pulte's bottom line isn't always what's best for us as owners. On the bright side, with owners on the board and on committees, we'll finally get access to data that we didn't have before. You'll have full access to data that you need to carry out your fiduciary responsibility as a board owner. And the owner board members will need to use facts and the power of reason to help the 4 Pulte board members see both sides of an issue. Admittedly, that's going to be a big challenge, but it's something we have to do. I think I'm up to that. Why me? What are my qualifications? Served on a board of education in New York State for 5 years, 3 as president. Always a challenging environment. And if you don't successfully collaborate with folks, you're not going to get anywhere. My professional life served large Fortune 500 client board of directors and senior management. I think that accounting knowledge is useful to the board. I've worked with HOA and local Pulte management, and I think I'm strong enough to be heard, and I'm also willing to listen. So hopefully that will give me the abilities I need to be a good board member. Thank you.
Dan is second.
I think the single biggest issue we have is communication. It's a two-way street. We're communicating, and Pulte isn't. That's what's happening. And how to resolve this, we have to get them to listen and to respond. Once we have a majority on the board of resident members, and we'll have better access to do that. In the meantime, it will be up to the resident managers there to do a little arm twisting with the Pulte representatives on the board. That can be done. I have a good background as an investigator for over 30 years with the federal government. We're going to have to build cases to remind particularly board members what's going on, remind them of their fiduciary responsibilities, and as we get closer and closer to Pulte actually leaving, then they'll have to start thinking about the consequences of what's going on. That's assuming we get and can find the right information. Thank you.
Rick is next.
I wish I could give you a different answer, but yes, the biggest problem is the fact that even when 3 owners, 3 of the 5 people sitting up here are seated, Pulte will still hold 4 seats on that board, and they've advised us that they don't plan on giving up that majority until they build and sell the last house here. So that's a problem. A large connected problem is the conflict of interest that's built into the structure, because we've got 4 people on the majority side of our board who are on the one hand employed by Pulte, and on the other hand, they have a legal duty to represent the best interests of everybody that lives in this community. As we get closer to transition, the gulf between, or the gap between the 2 sides of their personality becomes larger and larger. Because as we get closer to transition, the owner interest is in uncovering problems and solving them, regardless of the cost to Pulte. From Pulte's point of view, they want to get out of here as cleanly and cheaply as possible. So these guys are going to be torn in 2 very different directions. It's our job to remind them repeatedly that they have a legal duty to represent us, regardless of the fact that they work for Pulte. and to make that clear to them literally every day. Thank you very much.
Chuck.
Obviously, we've heard some very good issues, and we're all aware of other issues that are out there. The transition financial reserve study, questions surrounding that. There's some subsidence, erosion issues that are out there. But we're aware of those, and to me, that lessens the concern that I have, because once we know about them, we can investigate, we can mitigate, we understand what's involved, or should be able to understand. We can quantify it, so we know what to expect. What worries me is what's out there that we don't know about. There's likely to be something, there may not be, but we don't know what we don't know. And that's what concerns me. As one of the board members, I'll work with the board, I'll work with community interested homeowners that are looking at some of these issues, try to identify what's out there and make sure that we've got them addressed, mitigated, understood before we get to the point that voting goes out. Thank you.
And that brings us to Jim.
It's difficult to come up with a single important issue, but one of the things we need to develop is a smooth and transparent transition from the budget and reserve fund details to the HOA resident board members. Now, if elected, I want to thoroughly understand the budget process and how the numbers are developed. What are all the issues that are in the past? Past audits, the reserve fund, engineering, whatever. Willing to listen, to learn, and ask questions about anything that's not clear or that I don't understand. And I always seek qualified independent help and advice when needed. I know a lot of residents have already worked on a number of these issues, and I will be seeking their advice and counsel whenever possible. Thank you.
Just hold on to the mic, because you're up for the next question first. What one trait do you possess that you believe best qualifies you for a position on the SCCL Board of Directors?
My belief is that my engineering experience and education qualifies me to understand. My entire education and work experience has been to find solutions to problems. That's what engineers do. We don't create them, or we try not to. I've learned to deal with the facts. I've learned to deal with what is, not what I would like to have it have been. I work to gather all the facts before committing to a decision whenever possible. However, can make decisions without facts when I have to. As noted in my opening remarks, I have a long history of working with regulations, that's the CCRs, legal experts, technical experts, contractors, politicians. And I have budget and management experience and a proven record and ability to work cooperatively with a variety of technical, legal, and political people. Thank you.
Ben, you're next.
I think my qualifications really is my experience as an investigator. I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've analyzed things, I've incorporated and come up with a recommendation. Oftentimes there's rights on both sides, and you try to kind of compromise. So I'm used to digging through data. The other thing is that we need really to stay focused, to just stay in the game. I've faced all sorts of turmoils and tragedies just like you guys have, and that's the key to getting along in a difficult situation and difficult circumstances. And that's what the board members are going to have to do, because they're going to go in and be outgunned initially. I have an easygoing attitude. I've dealt with all sorts of people, all levels of work in my career. I feel I would make an excellent member. I ask for your support. Thank you.
Rick is next.
As As far as experience goes, as I said, I spent 30 years as a corporate lawyer counseling executives and boards and working closely with them on a daily basis. So I certainly know how that process works. As far as trait goes, which is really what the question was, I would have to say the ability to stay calm and focused on the job at hand, even amidst conflict. There's going to be conflict on this board. There's almost no